Hi folks, Kenny Smith, Total Force Holdings Incorporated. I have went through absolute hell of trying to film this because my phone wanted to be retarded and just quit filming. We're going to talk about a little something that I haven't dealt much on lately, and that's the street howitzer, right? The 12-gauge shotgun. Okay, this one being a manually operated version. No shells in it, no shells in the room. All right, chamber. If all are clear, at some point we will be seeing clear magazine, clear chamber. My Glock 19C, my backup gun, okay? It is cut to run a 26 magazine, so a little bit smaller than what you're probably used to when you hear Glock 19. Nope, you stay there. All right. When we talk about the shotgun, first off, elaborate a little bit as to some information on this particular one. This is my dirt cheap special. Okay, that's how I usually refer to it. This is the gun that lives behind the door at the house. If I'm traveling, it's the one that goes under the seat in the truck. If it gets stolen for whatever reason, I'm not out very much money. I paid $200 for my cousin for the gun itself. The only thing I paid for that's on it is the Blackhawk Quick Adjust Sling. The rest of it that's on here, either I won in a giveaway or it come out of a parts box. So, talk about a little details here. First off, this is the New England Harrington and Richardson, which I think them and New England Firearms are awful close to each other. This is the H&R pump, partner pump. It is an 870 copy. Okay. To my knowledge, the only parts that don't interchange are obviously the receiver, the bolt, and the barrel. All right. This one, the shell stop bars are actually out of an 870p. They're spares that I had for my 870p years ago. I'm the only person I know that's broken 870p. So I had a bunch of spare parts, and yeah, I put the brighter orange. I don't know if you can go. The brighter orange follower. This gun came from the factory with a bright orange follower, but the one that I put in there was just a lot brighter. It was easier to see in the dark. So I went on ahead and put that in there. The buttstock attachment for the sling is off of Spec Ops Bomba. Actually, when I was in the Marine Corps, the M16A4 I was carrying, I used to use this on there, just not with this sling. The front sling swivel, which is in the factory. Sling swivel stud on the magazine end cap there. There we go. That was in my parts box, and I just put that on this quick adjust sling from Blackhawk. It's not padded, but it does have the slide buckle up here. You can loosen it, or you can tighten it just by that little slide buckle there. All right. I think I paid $20 for the sling. Also up front on the forward end of the weapon here, we see the QD socket from CD on the mount from CDM gear, the picker on the other side, and the Streamlight TLR1S. I actually won this all in a giveaway from CDM gear. This entire the mount, the QD swivel that was over here that I took off, and the light from in a giveaway on Facebook from CDM gear that I didn't even know I had entered. All right. This is also an Allen butt cuff. I got it from Walmart years ago. It's been on just about every shotgun I've owned. And we have, again, 5 shells. Not my preferred way of carrying shells, but we'll get to that in a little bit when I talk about desired setups for a shotgun. But anyway, just give me a few. I usually keep slugs in here. And I keep the tube loaded with buckshot. But, yeah, that's just the basics on this shotgun itself. Oh, it is bead sighted, but I don't know how well you can see that, but it is drilled and tapped. There you go. It is drilled and tapped for a pick row. So that is my setup here direct. When we're talking about shotguns, we have to understand it's just like any other weapon system. It has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. The two biggest disadvantages to the 12-gauge shotgun, well, three biggest disadvantages of 12 gauge shotgun are size. It's 18.5-inch barrel to comply with federal law. You want a good thick stock on a shotgun. You just do, just because everything else will beat you half to death. It's going to be heavy. Just a lot of steel in this gun, and the ammunition itself is bulky and heavy. So size is a disadvantage. It can be an advantage because obviously the heavier the gun, the less recoil you as the shooter feel. But size will always be a disadvantage. Ounces equal pounds, pounds equal pain when you have to carry the thing. So keep that in mind. 2, recoil. These things pack a wallop on both ends. Yes, I get it. Recoil control in a shotgun is a training thing. I get it. Reduced recoil loads exist, but they're typically not as powerful as their full recoil cousins. All right, that's why you have reduced recoil loads and full power loads. All right, the more power you have on this end, the more power you have on this end. Okay, keep that in mind anytime you're dealing with a shotgun. Next, all right, besides that, you've got reduced capacity. These things shoot big cartridges. All right, when you look at like even the Keltec bullpup or the DP-12, I think they're like 15, 16 shells max. Glock 19, 15, 16 shells. This one holds 13 because I cut it down to use a 26 mag. Okay, one of those things. You can't avoid not having much room for shells when you're using big shells. All right. Those are 3 disadvantages you'll never get around with a shotgun. Okay. What do you get advantage-wise? Number 1, with a manually operated gun, reliability. As long as I'm strong enough to work this action like I mean business, then it will keep shucking shells until it runs out of shells to shuck. Okay? Semi-automatic shotguns, they're not as reliable as their pump-action brethren. And they're a little bit more ammunition finicky. Okay? Call me crazy, they just are. All right? So it's been in my experience and opinion. The thing is, with a pump gun, if you get malfunctions, they can get some humdingers. You really have to work these actions hard, because if you half-ass it, you get all kinds of feedway stoppages all up in here, and you think this gun's a 1911 choking up where it should be shoving shells in the chamber. All right? And they are a metric pain in the butt to clear. Can it be done? Yeah, but sometimes like a pocket knife or something is required to move stuff around, move the shells around. Typically what you'll see is 2 shells being released at once. And it can be a real pain in the neck. Or you'll have a round that doesn't completely eject, and they'll be vying for space on this carrier. So you really have to shuck this action hard by shooting it. All right, which by itself there is some merit to people hearing that sound and not wanting to play anymore. Okay, there is some merit to that. Why is that? Why do they fear this sound? Point 2: these things are powerful. Okay, they kick hard because they hit hard. All right, when you're talking a shotgun, you're no longer talking single projectile measured in grains. When you're talking single projectile slug, you're talking about over an ounce in weight. In 12 gauge, some of the lightest slugs I know of are 7/8 of an ounce. That's a lot of lead coming down range. Even when you're talking about Savage slugs, you're still talking about 350, 400 grains. You're talking about 2 45 ACP bullets, basically. All right, or almost 2 45 lone colt bullets for that matter. So keep that in mind. These things throw a lot of lead down range. When you're talking about buckshot, let's say you use a 12 pellet double up buck, the 2 3/4 inch magnum load. You're talking about emptying. If I were to take just this 12 round magazine from slide lock and do this, you're talking about emptying the capacity of that weapon at one time. Okay, with one pull of the trigger. One shot, boom, 12 rounds of 9mm. All right, or 12 rounds of 38 special. You're talking about a pair of Gem Cirillo Model 10s at one time. A lot of hurt going down range. All right. that has a tendency, people when they get shot with 12 gauge shotguns typically don't get back up. They don't want to get shot with these. When they hear that sound, they know there's a 12 gauge shotgun in the fight. Conversely, if you're dealing with a hardened criminal, tell them where you are, they're probably going to shoot that direction. All right? Because again, they don't want to get shot by that. But again, every advantage can be a disadvantage. So the power of the shell, devastating, very good penetration, especially when you talk about Foster type slugs or branchi slugs or slugs in general. Out of this thing, you got very good penetration. Downside, you've got very good penetration. Okay, if you're shooting buck or shooting slugs, you do have to contend with over penetration. Again, advantage and disadvantage with buck in particular, you've got a spread. Now, this thing isn't the trench broom or room broom they're envisioned to be, but nevertheless, it is not a single projectile. Advantage, if you're shooting at a moving target, you've got a little bit more margin for error. Disadvantage, when you pull the trigger, let's say you're using the load I use, you're no longer contending with one projectile, you're contending with 9. And I had the 9 pellet Remington double up buck in here when I unloaded it for this video. If I'm traveling or something like that, the 9 pellet stuff goes away and the 12 pellet stuff gets put in. All right, a little bit more powder charge, a little bit more pop. All right, there again, with those loads, I'm no longer dealing with one projectile. I have to be accountable for 9 to 12 every time I pull the trigger. So, one of those things to keep in mind. Next thing to worry about with a shotgun, limited magazine capacity. The upside of having less bullets is when you have less bullets to play with, people tend to make their shots count a little better. Downside, you've got less ammunition. Ammunition in or on gun is time and fight. Okay? Just stuff to think about. The weight of a 12 gauge shotgun can absolutely be an advantage. And if I all of a sudden, I get a click and he's on top of me and I go into bayonet fighting type stuff, getting wrapped upside the head with that barrel is not going to be fun for anybody. Solid butt stocks are not fun to get hit with. Okay? So, advantage can be a disadvantage or vice versa. All right? Versatility. Everybody wants to talk about the versatility of these guns. Okay? You've really got two choices. Buckshot or slugs. Because we've already discussed why less than lethal should never mix the two. Okay? I think. If I didn't, I did it on a previous video. Or previous attempt at videoing. I'll hit it one more time. Less lethal shotguns are less lethal only. Lethal shotguns are lethal ammunition only. That's the way it should be. That's the way it is in many circles. Again, it keeps people from dying that don't need to die. Alright. For certain situations, sure, you can use these to launch gas. Using a blank and like a cup on the end of it, for those of you that have access to them. You can use them to launch gas, stuff like that, and that's fine. But again, that would be best with the totally empty magazine tube and single loading. But I still wouldn't recommend it, but it can be done. Breaching. Breaching rounds work great as lethal ammunition in close quarters. So since I'm right over here by my door, all right, it is entirely doable for me to breach that door, boom, and rack another breaching round in when I come in and deal with close range threats with those breaching rounds. Just treat them as a slug. All right, that is entirely doable. All right, I know people that have done it in Iraq. So, Marines I served with, Navy corpsmen that I served with, I know guys that have done it. So, if you don't believe it'll work, talk to them. Is it as effective as buckshot or slugs? Hell no. But it can work in a pinch. So I would have no issue with loading a shotgun with breaching rounds. And as a matter of fact, when you're using lethal rounds, slugs and buck, those can be used for breaches in certain situations. So not as big of a deal there for an offensive gun. All right, for a reactive gun, buckshot and slugs are it. Okay. What about birdshot? Well, birdshot is meant to shoot little bitty birds. Mongo the felon is not a little bitty bird. He's going to need a right smart more convincing to put down. Well, the overpenetration issue. Look, if it'll penetrate Mongo the felon, it'll penetrate your drywall. Fact. All right. They'll cut shell methodology to make a cheap slug. Just buy a damn slug. All right. You're going to get way more powder behind it, so you're going to get a lot more pop. Plus, that slug will actually expand a little bit. Just get slugs if you're going to do all that. Birdshot at close quarters. Yes, it can make grievous wounds, but they're generally superficial. Birdshot doesn't penetrate as well as buckshot. It doesn't have the mass to do it. I love my 9mm bullets, but they won't penetrate as deep as a .45 because they're not as heavy. They don't have the mass. So, buckshot or slugs is all there is. All right. For me, I keep my tube loaded with buckshot. All right. Why? Because it doesn't penetrate as deeply as a slug. I do keep spare slugs on the gun. You never know when you might need one. All right. What about setting up your shotgun for success? This one right now is about a half-assed example of that. I don't like butt cuffs because if I'm coming up to a wall, I want to be wall, body, weapon. That way, if I need to, I'm presenting as little of my body as possible, all right, away from that wall. If I need to use my light, well, we can do that. Okay. All kinds of ways to do that while minimizing my target profile as much as I possibly can. All right. The surefire forehand is a good way to go. With that, we'll talk on lights in a second. Still talking about butt cuffs. Let's say I come up to this. Well, for wall body weapon, I need to transition to my left side, right? Well, if I have shells against the side of my face, all right, this is a problem. So, not the best way. What does this need to be replaced with? And by what does this, I mean this exact one on my shotgun. A speed feed stock. Alright, speed feed stock. What you have is on the starboard side of the weapon, you got 2 shells in a magazine tube here at the top. On the port side, 2 shells here in a magazine tube down here at the bottom. Alright, where does this come in handy? I need to transition to a slug. Alright, I fish that round out, that comes up on the carrier. Flip the gun back over. Out of the magazine tube comes a slug. Drop it in the ejection port. Send it home. Out of the speed feed stock comes another one. I have 2 slugs now. Okay? And I can do that twice. Alright? If, for whatever reason, I've already single loaded here, I need another slug, still doable. Okay? And it still allows the gun to be ambidextrous. Do I lose 1 shell? Yeah, I do. But what do I gain? I gain the ability to handle this weapon in an ambidextrous manner. Next thing, side saddle. However many rounds you want is up to you, but you want at least 2 rounds brass up, the rest of them brass down. What do you get for your trouble by doing that? I get a click when I need a bang. Drop the pump, round out, send the slide home. I can do that twice if I need to. Other rounds brass down. Pull it out, in the tube. Pull it out, in the tube. Okay. I would say the magazine capacity of your shotgun if possible. I don't like the ones that also hold shells over here. Alright. I'm just one side of the gun's fine with me. And the reason I say that is I think when these things are already heavy. The more shells you stuff in and on it, the heavier an already unwieldy weapon gets. Okay? So stick with just this side. I know guys that say 4. I know guys that say 6. I know guys that say 8. I really have no issue with either. One thing to keep in mind with the side saddle or the Velcro I know I talked about earlier is forearm overlap. It may require swapping out the forearm. Keep that in mind. A shotgun needs a weapon-mounted light. They're typically used in close quarters, and many people use them inside their home. It is exceptionally difficult to manipulate this weapon with a handheld light. Okay? Hence, going weapon mounted. Constant on is always a good option to have for maybe if I've got that person here at gunpoint and I'm securing them for law enforcement. It keeps me from dealing with having to flinch or whatever and losing that light. Okay? I search or do everything else with my momentary, which on this pistol light they are both activated with either my thumb when shooting right-handed or my trigger finger when left-handed. Okay? Very simple concept. The Surefire weapon light uses the pressure plates built into the forearm. Another good option. The Surefire X series of pistol lights works great here. But keep in mind, if you're pushing in on that light, when you touch a round off on this gun, it's going to hit you in the thumb. So I tend to like the Streamlight and Insight paddles. I can lock them on and just be done with it. But I would do the same thing with the Surefire. All right. Slings. You need to be able to run this gun ambidextrous, but a shotgun does need a sling, especially if it's a home defense gun. Why? Because I don't want to search my house with a weapon-mounted light. All right? If I'm worried that it might be someone coming in late, I don't want to light them up with a 12-gauge shotgun. Okay? I can keep this weapon into my body and use my handheld. And if I feel the need, I can very much drop my handheld, okay, and go to the scattergun itself and the weapon mounted, because I've verified that threat. And the same should be said with any long gun, which is one of the reasons why I actually prefer a handgun for home defense, because I can keep my handgun in a ready position, use a neck index, and go from there. I still use my weapon mounted light. Shotguns need a light. They need decent sights. For most people, there's nothing wrong with a bead. If you're going to do a lot of slug shooting, you need more than a bead. All right. Rifle sights are fine. Ghost ring sights are fine. Got no issue to either one. What's better is putting a pick rail on top of your gun and putting a red dot sight on it. It's going to be faster. It's going to be a bit more accurate, just like you would be with a rifle. Running the shotgun, pretty simple. Somewhere on your shotgun, you have an action bar lock on the H70 pattern. It's in front of the trigger guard. On a Mossberg pattern, it's up here. All right. I'm sorry. Wow. On the other side, down here. I don't know where it is on other patterns of guns. Those are the only two pump guns I've ran a lot. It is the Mossberg and the H70. A lot of shotguns have a crossbolt safety. All right. It's meant to be manipulated by right-handed. Trigger finger pushes in, on fire. Thumb pushes in, on safe. We'll get to that in a second. The Mossberg's is up here on the tang. I actually prefer that, okay, for reasons I'll discuss probably in another video. Some shotguns have a crossbolt mounted up front. I like that a little bit better than back here. All right. Other than that, know where this is, your slide stop bar, your manual safety, and you may have to contend with a shell carrier in the down position or not to reload. The 1100 series from Remington has a button in the center that has to be pushed in before that'll go home. On a semi-auto, there's always going to be a bolt stop, and some also have a shell release button too, so keep those in mind. All right. Shotguns are just like rifles. They all operate the same, but they all operate differently. Okay. All right. What do I mean by they all operate the same? They all unlock. The bolt will always unlock. It's got to. Okay. There we go. It's going to extract, eject, cock, feed, chamber, and lock, and fire. Okay, they're all going to do that all the time. There's no stopping it. How they do it goes about it differently. You should be familiar with more than one type of shotgun. All right. Key thing on the shotgun: feed it, feed it, feed it, feed it. If you're not shooting a shotgun, you should be reloading a shotgun. They don't have much ammunition. You can't play with them for very long at a time. Backstop. Backstop is always an issue with any weapon, but shotguns more so. Again, shotgun wounds are devastating, so you really don't want to play around with this thing. When everybody talks about stopping power, all right, everybody wants to talk about pistol rounds. This thing has stopping power, but understand it's not infallible. There have been evidence of people shot with shotgun slugs and sticking around for long enough to hurt somebody. Okay? Keep that in mind. Just because it's devastating doesn't mean it's a one-stop shop. All right? One-shot stop, or one-stop shop for that matter. And the last thing to keep in mind, if you're going to run a shotgun, this is an upper body strength intensive weapon. All right? It's heavy, so I've got to contend with it, holding it up here. When I shoot it, it's going to buck me, so I've got to keep it. I've got to stay on that gun, pressing out. When I work this action, I can't be a dang little bitch. I've got to really rack it hard to guarantee that it functions. As long as you can do those things and keep in mind its limitations, this is a devastating weapon system in the right hands. Is it a general purpose weapon? Absolutely not. But in the niche of close quarters battle, there are no other weapon systems that can do what this can do. So I hope you enjoyed this. About a 25-minute presentation here. A little bit of talk on the shotgun. What do you think about the shotgun? Shoot me a comment. Send us a message on Facebook. Tell me, let me know. Also keep in mind, Barack Obama, for those that don't speak country, he is vomit, because every time I see him, I go, oh God, I want to vomit. But he passed another executive order last night declaring small-time gunsmiths and all that now having to pay about a $2,300 fee to the State Department. They're now ITAR manufacturers. So if you like this video, and you want to keep seeing gun stuff, remember, our responsibility to protect our freedoms doesn't end. It's our responsibility to protect them for our family. All right, very few people are alive today that know true freedom in this country. All right, so you got to stay politically active, especially with the election coming up. Stay frosty, stay in the fight, and because of the election, I'm going to say, vote for anybody but Hillary.